Hi, welcome to Tag Arcade, and this is part two of modifying my event system. So the one thing I forgot to talk about was how to modify this Tag Arcade event system so that it references your own control scheme. And to do that, all you have to do is really change the protected controls, car controls, and have it linked to your own control scheme. Once you do that, then you're going to get a bunch of error messages, obviously, because it's going to be referencing your controls, but fortunately, the lines you have to change will show up at the bottom. So if you go into these one by one, you'll see that you have to take into account how your control scheme is detecting whether a button is down or up. And you just pretty much go through the lines of codes and make those reference changes. And once you do, this should work with your code as well. Okay, so I'm going to undo what I did and resume the tutorial. So the first thing we want to do is to take into account our two new controls. And our two new controls is the submit button and the cancel button. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take button 4, which is my NOS text, and the other NOS label. I'm going to duplicate those, and I'm going to duplicate those a second time. And now let's go ahead and change this to submit. Change the text to submit. And here submit. And lastly, the label submit. Man, that's a lot of buttons to change. Same thing with cancel. So this is going to be my cancel text. Cancel. And this is going to be my cancel text too. Okay. And lastly, cancel. Now with all those changed, I'm going to take these and simply slide these down so that they are back into view. Okay, wonderful. So let's go ahead and play this and see what happens. So up works, down, left, right, NOS, submit. Oh, okay. So if I do submit or cancel, it changed the NOS button. So I forgot to reprogram what these buttons do. So in this case, instead of remapping my 4th button, I need to remap my 5th button and remap my 6th button. File, save. Let's try this again. So we go up, down, left, right, NOS, and I got a index out of exception, out of range exception. Okay, so let's open this and see what is wrong. So this gives me an indication that that the error is with my config.remap. So let's go ahead and go into our config script. So the reason why we have an error message is if we go into our controls, we added 2 new states, submit and cancel. So what this means is that all of our loops are going to be wrong because before all our loops stopped at NOS. Now that we added submit and cancel, it's going to stop at cancel. So there's one of 2 ways we could do it. The first way is we could simply change this around so that NOS comes at the end, and then we don't have to rewrite a whole bunch of our existing code. The other way of doing this is you have to figure out where all your instances of your loops end at NOS. Say for example, these 2 lines of codes. and wherever there's a problem, just go ahead and change it to cancel. The only problem is changing that manually to cancel means we're probably going to miss one or two things. So rather than do that, I'm just going to still keep NAS at the very end and just simply do submit and cancel somewhere in the middle. So I'm going to save that, and now that changes things up a bit. The reason why that changes things up is now the order is different. So if we go into here again, so my order should be up, down, left, right, submit, cancel, NAS, which means that order has to be the same for my control schemes as well. So let's go ahead and to our controls, which is under car control. And yeah, so now I have to do submit here and cancel. So I'm going to do submit, cancel, and NAS. Gonna hit apply to apply this to my prefab. File save. And now my buttons are going to be changed as well. So I have to get my NAS button. So now NAS is going to be at the end. So that's going to be 6. Here it's going to be 4. And this is going to be 5. Okay. So like I said, submit is going to be 4. Cancel is going to be 5. And NAS is going to be 6. Because we have 6 entries into it. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or 7 entries with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get the idea. Let's go ahead and play. And let's just go ahead and clear this error message. Just so that it's not confusing, let's go ahead and move this out of the way for a little bit. Try this again. Up, down, and now everything is up, down, left, config. I guess it's hard when I think the submit button became my mouse presses. Okay. That's gonna be tough. Actually, let's do it this way. Index out of range. Why is index out of range still? Okay, so hit stop, hit play, and I still get an index out of range at start. Okay, so that means I get an out of range over here on my button text. So let's go ahead and look at our config to see what is wrong. So we're going to go to our event system. Not to our event system, to our canvas, and see that our labels there's not enough labels. So we need 7 labels because we need to cancel. So the text that we're referring to is the text within the button itself. So I gotta make sure that I do this in the proper order. Submit, cancel, and NAS. Okay, so let's hit file save. And let's try this again. Hit play. So what I want to do is I want to change my buttons around so that I could just test the other stuff. So my submit, I don't want it to be mouse button press. I'm just going to do less right now. Okay, so just by changing the key to less, that should be able to correct whatever problem I have right now. So up, down, left, right, NAS, submit could be enter, cancel could be escape. Okay, so now our functionality is in. But as you saw earlier, what happens if my submit is my mouse button? Well, the only problem is if submit is my mouse button, now every time I try to configure something, it's going to try to configure it with the mouse button. And I'm going to get really weird error messages. The other thing that's hard to do is, so let's change this. The other thing that's hard to do is if the submit is the return key and you try to use the keyboard controls, as soon as you try to hit enter to change one of the keys with the keyboard, it'll probably remap this to return as well, or some of the keys to return. So the problem right now is that every time you want to do a remap and you hit the return key, Unity is doing the update loops a few times in like milliseconds. So when you press the return key, it's detecting it a few times. And what this means is that the first time it says you want to remap it, and as long as you have it held down for about like a second, it's going to say, oh, this is the key you want to remap for your controls. So the way to avoid that is you could either A, press the enter key really, really quick so that it'll only detect it for one loop cycle. But that is a really crazy expectation to give a user, saying that, oh, if you want to remap the controls using the keyboard, please press the return key for like a split millisecond. That's just not practical. The other way of doing it is we're going to introduce a delay within the key remapping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our config screen, and let's go ahead and introduce a delay in the button remapping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a bool that says delay button remapping. There we go. And right now, our delayed button remapping is going to be set to true at the very beginning. And now, what do I want to do? I want to introduce a delay on when we should remap the control. So if delay button remapping, so if we want to introduce a delay, then we're going to set this to false because we are done introducing the delay and we want to start a coroutine. So start coroutine, let's see, remap delay. Okay. So the only reason why we use start coroutine is that is the only way we could use the wait for seconds command in Unity. So what we're going to have to do is going to do private I enumerator, and I enumerator is required if you want to use the code wait for seconds as well. Remap delay. Open bracket, close bracket. And we want to do all of this stuff here in our button remapping into our coroutine. And now the key thing is we want to do yield return new wait for seconds and I don't know 2-second delay. So you can see here that action is undefined because this function here doesn't know anything about this instance of action. So the way to do that is we need to pass this function right here, remap delay, the action variable. So to do that, we're just going to say action when we call the function, and in our declaration, we're just going to copy this one into action over here. And that should get rid of our error messages. So we're going to hit save. So what I want to do is I want to introduce a delay not only when I press to configure the button, but also when it's done remapping. So we'll introduce another delay as well. So to do that, let's go ahead and actually introduce an actual variable. So we'll do public float delay. Okay. So now instead of 2 seconds, I'm going to say delay, since that'll be my button delay. And now I want to do the same thing for setting it back to true. So private IEnumerator, let's see, remap reset. Okay, so we're going to copy this. We're going to wait for so we're going to wait for however long our delay is set. And then once we do that, we're going to say delay button remapping equals true. Okay. And when should we start this coroutine? When we're done remapping our controls. So we're going to say start coroutine. And what did I call this? Remap reset. Remap reset. So I'm going to do it here, here, and lastly, here. Save. So hit play, and move this over. So I guess my submit is not my mouse button, so let's go. Oops, pressed it in the wrong field. So up, down, left, right. Now this is N. Submit. We'll change it to enter. Oh, and we could do cancel escape. Okay, so now everything works. So if I press enter, there's a 0.3 second delay so that I can actually remap it to something other than enter, or to whatever my submit key is. So let's go up, down, left, right, NOS. I guess that's fine. So now, yeah, we introduced a few second delay. And that is working. So now we could actually move this button back so that we could click on it. And yeah. Yeah. So that's it. So that's the, oh, I guess, no. I got an out of index array because my car prototype probably didn't account for the two new variables, the submit and cancel. But other than that, our configuration screen is indeed working correctly. So the up-down works, and I could configure all these screens. And that's it for part 2 of the tutorial. So in my next tutorial, we're going to modify the car prototype scene so that whatever object we're controlling can use the event system to move it instead of the update function. So if you enjoyed this tutorial, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And until next time, have fun and keep on creating games.